Hey, how's it going everyone? For the last year or so, I've seen debates pop up here and there throughout social media regarding fan favorite Roronoa Zoro and the Shanks victim, Eustace Captain Kidd. Now, today's discussion isn't going to necessarily be a versus battle, more so it'll be a discussion about the matchup as a whole, since I feel like there is a lot of downplay for Kidd, and most of his feats in Wano are turned into a joke by a majority of the vocal fanbase. Before we begin, I want to be very transparent. I definitely prefer Zoro as both a character and a combatant, and I'm sure the same can be said for most of you watching this, but when discussing these kinds of encounters, one shouldn't make a decision based entirely on preference. I mean, you can, but it doesn't really make for the most sound argument. Despite my preference for Zoro over Kidd, I see a lot of Kidd slander for one reason or another, so I want to tackle their individual battles and their encounter with Kaido as a whole to establish who would actually win if these two ever fight in their current versions as of the making of this video. Now, for the purposes of this video, we'll be talking about the Wano versions of Zoro and Kidd. Any previous versions of these characters are completely irrelevant since these two would have severely outscaled any previous feats they've performed. As for Egghead, the difference in strength between these two should have stayed relatively the same since they both left Wano at the same time. In other words, however much stronger Zoro got from his fight against King, Kidd should have gotten a similar, if not relatively larger boost from fighting Big Mom. Finally, I would appreciate it if you could like and subscribe. It genuinely helps out the channel, and any support allows me to continue making these videos. I'm getting closer to 10k subs and would love to hit this goal before the end of the year. If I can reach this goal, I will make Naruto vs Luffy happen. Also, I started a Ko-Fi. I can't offer a lot right now, but for $2 a month, you can join my Discord server where we discuss power scaling, versus battles, and anime as a whole. The server is slowly growing, and we welcome any and all anime-related takes. I believe in discourse when it comes to debates, so if you're into that kind of stuff, take a moment to check it out. So with all that out of the way, let's begin. The first thing I need to make clear is that this is not a versus battle, like my other videos. More so, this is a response to the discussion as a whole. I've seen a lot of people say Zoro one-shots both Kidd and Law, and that can't be further from the truth. I took the time to look through the manga chapters and some of the feats in the anime to get a better idea of how much effort each pirate put into each respective fight. I'll also talk a bit about Law since he's technically part of this debate, since both he and Kidd are narratively equal since they both fought and defeated Big Mom. So to first establish who is more impressive throughout the Onigashima raid, I wanted to take into account how many hits each respective pirate landed on the Yonko and how many of those hits were effective. Then I wanted to compare how many hits each respective character took in each encounter. Kidd was able to land 3 hits on the rooftop fight, with 2 of the hits being effective against Kaido, even if it was relatively a small amount of damage. Kaido's scales were the biggest hurdle the worst generation had to overcome, since it isn't easy to actually inflict damage on Kaido. Unlike the others, Kidd uses outright brute force through his magnetism by trying to crush and slam him. It's contentious whether or not these hits were effective, but I counted them since they were used in sequence with Gear 4 Luffy, who we know can hurt Kaido in base thanks to advanced armament haki. And Kidd is consistently shown to be a rival to both Luffy and Law, who have techniques that can bypass durability throughout the rooftop fights. Oda doesn't usually include moments like this without reason, so to argue that Kidd didn't at least damage Kaido would mean that Oda didn't intend for Kidd's attacks to ever be effective, and that would retroactively mean Oda drew Kidd crushing and slamming Kaido for no reason. Kidd tanks 4 hits from the Emperors, with one of them possibly being off-screen since the entire group shows more fatigue and damage as we later on cut back into the fight. Zoro, on the other hand, landed 4 hits against Kaido, while 3 were effective, although I should add one of them is anime only since he never cuts Kaido's cheek in the manga. He fails to hurt Kaido in his initial combo attack with Killer and is capable of scarring Kaido after going all out and utilizing advanced Conqueror's haki while severely injured. He took 4 hits on the rooftop, with one of them being off-screen, 1 hit from each Emperor, and he was able to block and withstand the Conquest of the Sea Kaido and Big Mom used for a single second. Any longer and he would have died. This resulted in Zoro breaking 20 to 30 bones in his body. Moving on to their respective fights, Kidd landed 5 hits on Big Mom, with all 5 hits being effective, and he tanked 5 hits. However, 2 of these hits came from Basil Hawkins, since he had a straw doll of Kidd, which would send any damage Hawkins takes back at Kidd. One of the hits came from Killer, Kid's right-hand man, who attempted to stab Hawkins in his chest, which resulted in Kid bleeding from the left side of his chest. This is kind of contentious because if Killer intended to kill Hawkins right there, then that means he likely went for his heart, which would mean Kid was fighting Big Mom with a damaged heart. But that's up for interpretation. Kid, however, did have to tank a Mama raid off guard while suffering from head trauma due to Hawkins' interference. He also had to tank an Ikoku sovereignty, which I don't think I have to explain why it's impressive in of itself. Of the 5 hits Kid landed, 4 of them happened after he decided to use his Devil Fruit Awakening, the first of which was used after Locke Shock Ville to smash Big Mom with steel beams from nearby towers. This combination caused Big Mom to suffer enough damage that she decided to make herself more powerful by giving up a year of her lifespan. Even in this larger state, Kid was capable of bum rushing her with his Punk Coronadillo, which ended up breaking Big Mom's left arm, which she needed to heal afterwards. Big Mom merges her 3 special homies and utilizes her arguably most powerful attack, Mother's Misery, which, depending on the version of the fight, be it the anime or manga, Kid handles this attack differently. In the manga, he dodges the attack, which would be an impressive speed feat, but in the anime, he takes the full brunt of it. Switching back to Zoro, during his fight with King, he landed 8 hits on King, with only 4 being effective in taking him down. I want to first talk about the initial hit he landed on King after his body recovered from the Mink's Ultra Regenerative Medicine. On the panel, it shows that there is what seems to be blood coming from King after Zoro and Sanji attack the lead performers. This is likely a mistake since King shows no signs of damage afterwards and there aren't any signs of blood in the anime adaptation, so I didn't include it as an effective hit. During his clashes with King, he was capable of cutting part of King's mask off, which I did include even though I don't think it directly damaged him. Most of Zoro's attacks were ineffective against King since he had his flame on. As Lunarian, King has special physical traits like the flame on his back, which affect his overall durability and speed. While the flame is on, he's nigh invulnerable and arguably has higher durability than Kaido. While it's off, he's a little faster but can be damaged. Throughout their fight, King lands 5 effective hits on Zoro, with 2 of them being hard knockbacks. After he mastered Advanced Conqueror's Haki, the entire fight went in Zoro's favor, as he could now respond to everything King could do, whether or not his flame was on or off. It only took 3 hits after Zoro got his amp to put King down once and for all. The damage he accumulated from his fight with King, along with the damage he took from the rooftop fight, was doubled after the effects of the Ultra Regenerative Medicine wore off, and Zoro was basically at the brink of death, seeing the Grim Reaper itself before his very eyes. Now that I've gone over the numbers of both hits landed and taken, Zoro obviously looks more impressive. However, there's a lot more nuance that goes into these fights. For starters, one has to compare the opponents they fought, Big Mom and King. I'm gonna be honest, King isn't even remotely comparable to Big Mom. I've mentioned this in a few of my streams before, but no one cares about King or any of the first commanders. Besides the fact that he's a Lunarian, King isn't even remotely as big of a threat to the world government like Big Mom or any of the other Yonko. The world government and the entire planet as a whole does not care about anyone in the Yonko crew besides the Yonko themselves. They are the ones that make up the vast majority of the crew's power, and in every instance shown, the gap between the first commander and Yonko is massive. Considering the fact that Kid and Law fought together to defeat Big Mom, and even then they lucked out in that she hit the bombs Orochi had set up prior to the battle starting and was knocked off Onigashima, is a big point in the Zoro versus Kid/Law debate, so let's dive a bit deeper. For starters, Kid and Law did have to work together. Neither character can defeat Big Mom on their own, but the same could be said for Zoro. In One Piece, multipliers aren't that common, although they do exist, but we can at least assume that she got, at the very least, twice as strong. That means Kid and Law would have to be, at the very least, relative to a pre-transformation Big Mom in order to force her to make herself stronger. This is consistent with the fact that they were consistently pushing Big Mom to use more and more of her arsenal, which might I add had improved since the rooftop fight, since she had substituted Zeus for her new special homie, Hera. Unlike Zeus, Hera could bring out the full potential of Big Mom's arsenal, since Hera could combine with Prometheus and Napoleon in order to perform the Master Saber and Master Cannon. So the version of Big Mom Kid and Law are combating is essentially more dangerous than the one they fought on the rooftop. As a reminder, during Whole Cake Island, Sanji stated Big Mom was like a blimp made out of steel, and Beji added, "You won't find many weapons in the world that can harm her," and that even after a year of working under her, he's never seen her suffer so much as a scratch. Steel blimp is a better comparison than you realize. And yet Kid was capable of ramming into her with his punk cornadilla, which arguably isn't even imbued with haki, and broke her arm, while Law cracked her ribs with shock veal. Now, by comparison, Zoro did scar Kaido, but that was the upper extent of his limits at that point. And it's tough to tell whether or not he's that much stronger during his fight with King, but the simple fact is that Zoro himself stated he couldn't knock Kaido off his feet. Meanwhile, Kid could consistently brute force his way into knocking down Big Mom. I should also add that Big Mom and Kaido are relative to one another. They are consistently and narratively shown to be equal, so this makes the feat all the more impressive. Another thing to take note of is the fact that Big Mom hits harder than King. The fact that she has advanced Conqueror's Haki in addition to her insane physique, which may I remind you was capable of killing a giant chief by tossing him on his head as a 5-year-old. She set an entire giant village on fire as a child because of her hunger pangs before even having a devil fruit. King is in no way comparable to Big Mom in any regard besides durability, which might I add, Zoro never once cut or hurt King while his flame was on. I went over this on stream with chat. Whether it's the manga or anime, Zoro never hurts King while his flame is on, even with advanced Conqueror's Haki. Not to mention, if one compiles the number of hits that it took to bring down Big Mom compared to King, then King went down in 3 hits while it took them 5 respective hits each and unintentional bomb explosions to put down the fat lady. As for the number of hits that each combatant took, Zoro tanked more hits overall compared to Kid and Law if you account for the manga version of the fight only. In the anime, Kid took the full brunt of Mother's Misery, and if I counted correctly, that would add anywhere between 30 to 40 hits from Big Mom's strongest attack, while Law tanked approximately 50 full power armament haki enhanced punches from Big Mom. Okay, so then what about the 20 to 30 broken bones Zoro suffered from after he tanked the Conquest of the Sea? After he scarred Kaido and passed out from the attacks, as I mentioned earlier, he took the Minx Ultra Regenerative Medicine. Now, I can't tell you what exactly this medicine did for Zoro. There is absolutely no information as far as the manga goes that gives a better idea of what exactly it did in order to heal Zoro. Either it healed his body at an extremely rapid pace to the point that his bones themselves were also healed, or it removed the damage Zoro's body was experiencing and his bones are still broken but they were no longer impeding his movements. Either way, Zoro's condition was back to a point where he could fight without any issue whatsoever, so the most contentious part is whether or not his bones were broken. Regardless of the way I look at this fight, the simple objective truth is that Kid fought a more powerful opponent, arguably took more hits that dealt more damage to him, all the while he was forced to take damage to both his chest and head while Big Mom was relentlessly attacking him. He was capable of not only harming an emperor and breaking her bones through brute force that most weapons in the world can't even accomplish, and he did remove her from the battlefield thanks to his ultimate move, Damned Punk. A big counter argument I could see for this is that one could argue the bombs clearly helped in bringing down Big Mom, but the fact is Kid removed her from the battlefield. BFR or battlefield removal is just as optimal of an option to win a fight as any other win condition in versus battle, so this should not be discredited whatsoever. The announcer also stated by the end of their fight that the winners were Kid and Law. Regardless of whether or not the bombs were there, Kid could have potentially pushed Big Mom off the island since it was their intention anyway. If anything, all the bombs did was add that extra bit of damage that was necessary to put her down for good. I've also heard the community say that Trafalgar Law carried Kid throughout most of the fight, which again isn't even remotely true. By comparison, Law landed the exact same amount of hits as Kid and arguably took more hits from Big Mom's punches, though granted I'm not here to argue whether or not Big Mom's punches hit harder than Mother's Misery. Kid and Law essentially hurt Big Mom from the outside and inside respectively. Law silenced Big Mom while Kid pushed her off the island. Each character is consistently portrayed to be a rival, more so equal, so they both did about the same against Big Mom. If we're being realistic here, a fight between Zoro and Kid would ultimately end with Kid taking Zoro's swords away, and there's no way one could even remotely argue that Zoro could either continue to hold on to his swords or have haki that is powerful enough to withstand the effects of either Kid's devil fruit powers or his awakening. Especially since Zoro is not as strong as Big Mom, and Big Mom couldn't ignore Kid's awakening with her haki. One last thing I need to go over is Eustace Kid being one-shot by Shanks. This is arguably the most important argument against Kid since he was one-shot by another emperor. I have seen so many people argue that Kid is weak because Shanks was capable of one-shotting him. What most of these arguments fail to consider is that Kid isn't weak because he got one-shot by Shanks. What it really means is that Shanks is stronger than Big Mom. The simple fact that Kid was capable of tanking attack after attack from Big Mom, all the while being able to hurt her, and then Shanks blitzes and one-shots Kid while he's arguably off guard, does not amount to any anti-feat for Kid. If anything, it just means Shanks' divine departure is stronger than Big Mom's entire arsenal. Does that mean Big Mom is weak? No, it doesn't. And considering that, once again, Kid was capable of tanking multiple attacks from a stronger opponent only means that Zoro would have also gotten one shot if he were in the exact same situation. I'm gonna be honest. There is no reason why I should even remotely believe that Zoro could tank Divine Departure in the exact same scenario. Now, does that mean Zoro will forever be weaker than Kid? No, 100% that wouldn't be the case. Whether or not Kid returns to the story much more powerful as it continues, and whether or not Zoro reaches the level of an emperor, only time will tell. And this fight can definitely go in a different direction given enough time and feats for both characters. But one thing I do know as of now is that if we're talking about Wano Zoro versus Wano Kid, it's not even remotely close. But anyway, that's the end of the video. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and please like and subscribe. Like I said, it really does help out the channel. Oh, one last thing before I forget. My friend Jinell Di'Art put out her music video, I Like You, and I would really appreciate it if you guys could go check out her channel, as I think this song is a fantastic banger.
I like you, I really like you, and I'm beside you. Every second is a capturing view, yeah. I know it's a new thing, the feeling of flying away. The heart and the mind keep pulling the separate ways, and it's funny, you didn't think about it that way. Falling in love for you is a one-time fate, and I get it.
But anyways, I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace out.